welcome into, it's really, I don't know if it is partly getting help from Uncle Sam, but it's really getting help from people in Alabama and doing your own responsible acts.
Anti-Alabama.
Anti-Alabama
Yeah.
here. But Brian Hastings, you were with us last week in the emergency management, and I'm telling you, as the director, you have been right there. All of your people have been wonderful. You've got a great team working. But we want to talk about, you know, everything happens and you hear everything about it, but then it dies down, and you know, actually, the pain goes on. And let's talk a little bit about what's going on after you have a big disaster like we had in Lee County.
You know, thank you. That's a great point, Virginia and Jack, and thank you for your time again. To your point on data, 70% of all donations come within the first 60 days. And you got to take advantage of the media and the people and that wanting to help, but it needs to be phased and focused. So when you look at this disaster, and it was absolutely devastating, 23 people died. People asked, how long does it take to recover? I would argue that you never recover. Yeah. So I don't know what a better tomorrow looks like, or getting to a new normal, because nothing's normal. But really, it's a long-term recovery, because it's long-term. It's a cycle, it never ends, and you just hope that every day is a little bit better than the day before. So when the storm hit, and it was 70 miles long, mile wide, and 2 tornadoes were in the same area of Beauregard. So as the first responders were digging people out of rubble, they had to take shelter for the second EF2 that hit after the EF4. So it's just strange situation there across Macon, Lee, and into Georgia. So FEMA came in, and initially when their assessment was that we'd have about 700 applicants based on their models of overlaying the track and homes and census data. And so as of today, we're at just under 700 applicants at about $1.2 million in individual housing programs, which is individual assistance, other assistance, housing assistance, and about $1.2 million in small business administration loans, where there was 28 applicants. And then I'm going back to the FEMA assistance, because SBA is different than the federal assistance. We had, it's probably about 690 applicants. 18 of those were max grant. And you go, max grant, that must be huge, right? It's $34,000, $34,900. To give you a comparison, in Florence, because 18 max grants doesn't sound like a lot, in Florence they had 90,000 applicants and only 23 max grants. We have 18 max grants and less than 700 applicants. Wow. And that goes to socioeconomic, what you have, your insurance or savings, and your ability to, as a community, recover. So one of our missions in trying to decouple from weather and disasters, because I sometimes say people look at us as the weather people and disaster people. We're not those people. And response is only about 18% of our mission set. The majority is recovery and making people better, but not wanting to build back to what you were, build back to better, right? A better tomorrow.
Exactly.
And on the front side, we want to be the training, education, savings, banking, insurance folks, because individuals who insure the stuff that they love and have the ability to pull out a little bit of money or have a rainy day fund, and this goes for
everybody,
cities and municipalities and counties, right? People who can do those things recover better. And so I'm a big proponent of insurance. And most people do not have flood insurance. You're mandated to have it in a floodplain, but where it rains and rains a lot, you could be flooded. And some people say, well, it's not worth it, it's a risk I'm willing to take. But if you have nothing, the average FEMA grant in a disaster is just rose from about $4,000 to $5,000. So you've just lost everything, Jack.
You're right.
Here's your check for $5,000. All right? Or as you're going around the towns in the northwest where we had historic flooding, and your 20 homes flooded. You know, it had 8 inches of water, and it was kind of sewage water. And they and I believe it was the worst disaster they've ever seen. Their house they think is destroyed, but in accordance with FEMA criteria, it's affected.
Flood.
It's affected, and it's
not
a flood.
Destroyed. There's a difference.
That's right. It's affected, which means it's not applicable. It doesn't go into the numbers of destroyed and major, because you just pull the rugs out, you pull the floors, you cut the floorboards down, you put some air in there, you blow it out, you call it good. And that's not what people want to hear.
No.
So those people who have flood insurance, you know, the average FEMA grant I go back to is $5,000. The average flood insurance payout is about $30,000. So if you have one flood over the lifetime of that insurance, it usually pays for itself. And so, but it's an individual choice. So when an individual chooses not to have that insurance, the way I kind of sometimes share it, if you choose not to love the stuff that you have, and some people in the socioeconomic realm can't do some of those things. They make choices between food
Right.
and insurance.
Right.
And so I'm very sensitive to that. But if you had the means and you chose not to, then should the state insure your stuff and love your stuff, or should the federal government do that for you? And that's kind of the tension that we have, is really individuals who insure their stuff, have savings, and make decisions to be resilient, recover better. The other thing is, and you guys are aware of this because people talk bad about the federal government all the time, you can rebuild and build the way you want with insurance and your own money. You have the freedom, right? It's fiscal autonomy. As soon as you ask for federal dollars, there are documents and processes and requirements. So you may not be able to build the way you want to. And sometimes it's built to what you had. Sometimes it's built to what the codes are, and if you want to increase, then you get cross with those dollars, and people get frustrated and just go to, I'll just do it myself. So individuals who take care of themselves recover better.
Good. Well, listen, we appreciate you being with us. And again, thank you for the good work you've done.
Thank you,
You've
Jay.
made Alabama proud.
You're very kind.
We
Thank you,
appreciate
Virginia.
you.
Just remember, as Brian said, it's up to you to be prepared. Never take anything for granted, especially with weather. And we'll be right back right after this.